Ìsàlè Èkó ìbẹ̀ṣà lórísun Ádámù òrìṣà ọ̀kan làbà ọlọ́gẹ̀dẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́ oníkó ẹ̀yọ́ àǹgẹ̀rẹ̀ Ìsàlè Èkó àwa ló ní wọ́n tiwa náà mi ṣe bẹ́tẹ̀ ràn wá ibẹ̀ náà ń dẹ́bẹ̀ adé orí ọba ó dínú ìgbà ìgbà ìdúgbò ìgbà ilé ọlá ìgbà ilé ọlá kádẹ́pẹ́ lórí oyè kan kejì
the trustees of Isale Èkó Descendant Union as well. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to have another Ìsàlè Èkó Day. This one is quite interesting. The symposium theme for today is urban regeneration of Ìsàlè Èkó, the way forward. We do have a very interesting selection of speakers today. I call them subject matter experts. I do believe that we will definitely come out of this symposium with a strategy and also a timeline, as well as a way forward for us to basically chart a new way forward. Just before I before I say more, I'd like to introduce Ms. Shola Mogaji. She is our moderator for today. I hope I've done justice, no?
No, it's okay. It's good.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to be here today. I'm looking forward to doing this. It's been a long time coming. Ìsàlè Èkó is very personal to me, and I'm sure to a lot of us over here. So it's going to be a great one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you. So all protocols are observed. Kabiyesi, Oloye, everybody who has a love of Ìsàlè Èkó who is here today, and it's the reason why you're out here. I have such pleasant memories of Ìsàlè Èkó from my childhood. I'm in my 50s now, and none of those memories have dimmed at all. I remember them with a lot of joy and a lot of laughter. And I have a few stories that I tell from time to time about Ìsàlè Èkó. It's personal to me, deeply personal. Maybe because a lot of special people that I know are from Ìsàlè Èkó. So that's my reason for being here today. So I hope I can do justice to this. So we're going to get started because we don't want to waste any time. So before we start, I just want to say whoever put together the panel, the speakers, did such an amazing job. I'm looking at some names here and I'm just like, oh my God. By the time I leave here today, I'll be getting ready to write my own book on the history and the story of Ìsàlè Èkó to add to what's in my head already. But to get things cracking, we'll start with the opening remarks. And to do that, we have someone who is very personal to me and very dear. Uncle, family, father. I mean, I can go on and on about it, but I won't even go there this afternoon. I'd like to introduce Alhaji Femi Okunu, SANCON. He is the president, board of trustees, Ìsàlè Èkó Descendants Union. Let me also not forget that a lot of people are watching online. We welcome you to this symposium. Stay with us throughout the duration so we can get this done. I understand that Alhaji is going to be joining us, I think, virtually. So we'll just keep. Sorry, this has to be done in Yoruba.
Màá sọ Ìsàlè Èkó. You mix English with Yoruba. Shola.
Sir.
Màmá, àbúrò mi, ìyàwó mi, ọmọ Saheed ní Ìsàlè Èkó, tó bá introduce ara ẹ̀ dáadáa. Ọmọ Mọ́gàjí. I'm happy that you've taken on this role this afternoon.
Thank you, Uncle.
Mo kí alága wa Mr. Yomi Tokosi, wọ́n ṣe ń jíṣẹ́ pé o ti tẹlifóònù mi ní àárọ̀ ìní. Mo kí gbogbo àwọn ọmọ Ìsàlè Èkó tó wà on this platform, virtually àbí physically. Ìsàlè Èkó á gbé gbogbo wa o. Ìsàlè Èkó á gbé wa o. Ìsàlè Èkó á gbé wa o. Ọlọ́run gbàdúrà tí à ń ṣe yìí. Ọlọ́run má gbà lọ́wọ́ wa. Ibi tí wọ́n ti bí wa sí, tí wọ́n bí àwọn bàbá wa, ìyá wa, bàbá bàbá, ìyá bàbá, great great grandfather, great great grandmothers. Mo ṣe ìpàdé kan nípa ara problems wa àwọn ọmọ Èkó pẹ̀lú marginalization of our indigenes. Mo ṣe parí 3 hours Zoom meeting náà nípa ẹ̀. Torí ìjọba Lagos State kò sí lọ́wọ́ wa. Ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ń gbọ́ ohun tí mò ń sọ yìí. Wọ́n ní ẹ̀yin ọmọ obìnrin tí àwọn ọmọ yín, ẹ̀yin ọmọ wa tó jóbìnrin tí àwọn ọmọ yín nítorí pé bàbá wọn wá látọ̀yọ́, Abẹ́òkúta, Àkúrẹ́ àbí Kánò káàkiri, pé àwọn ọmọ yín wọ́n ṣe indigenes of Lagos State. Mo ti bá wọn wí ní Aláùsá some years ago nígbà tí nonsense yìí tó kọ́ crop up nípa admission to LASU tí kan náà àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ àbúrò mi gan-an ó kúnnù tó ń sọ fún ọ ní kọmití tó ń tà láti access àwọn tani indigenes ọmọ fún láì ní LASU tó ń sọ pé nítorí pé bàbá ọmọ yìí Ọ̀yọ́ ló ti wá kìí ṣe indigene. Bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ́ ló ti rí o. Àwọn ọmọ yín lọ́kùnrin lóbìnrin, obìnrin mò ń sọ ń sẹ́yìn, torí pé bàbá wá láti ibì kan, ọmọ Ìsàlè Èkó, àbọ̀mọ Òkè Pòpò, àbọ̀mọ Ẹ̀pẹ́, àbọ̀ ọmọ Badagry, Agége, tó jẹ́ pé màmá ẹ̀ obìnrin ni, wọ́n ní state of origin bàbá ẹ̀ ni kò ti wá, ìsọkúsọ nìyẹn. Àtọmọ ọkùnrin àtọmọ obìnrin tí ìyá bá ti jẹ́ Lagos indigene àbí bàbá bá ti jẹ́ Lagos indigene, let alone kó jẹ́ pàwọn méjèèjì ọmọ obìnrin indigene ni o. Ṣé lè bá a sọ fún àwọn tó wà ní ìjọba, ẹ̀yin tẹ́ wà ní ìjọba ní Aláùsá. Remark tí mo ṣe yìí nípa indigenes of Lagos mo sọ. Ká wá padà sí ibi tí àwa ti wá, Ìsàlè Èkó. Àwa tí a mọ ilé, tá a mọ Ìsàlè Èkó, àwọn ọmọ wa, àwọn ọmọ wa, ara tí a fi dá Ìsàlè Èkó dé sílẹ̀ nìyẹn. Kẹ́ bá lè máa mọlé, kẹ́ lọ bó ṣe rí. Àwọn èèyàn wa tó bá wà ń bẹ̀, bàbá ni o, ìyá ni o, ẹ̀yin náà máa yọjú sí wọn lẹ́ẹ̀kọ̀ọ̀kan kẹmọ bí Ìsàlè Èkó ṣe rí nísìnyí. Mi ní fẹ́ preempt èyí tí àwọn speakers wa tán máa sọ. Inú mi dùn pé àwọn ọmọ wa náà ni wọ́n wà nù list tí mo rí yìí. Màá tún rán yín létí nípa Ìsàlè Èkó Descendants Union. Àwọn bàbá wa náà ti dálẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀. Nígbà tí ìjọba Nàìjíríà tó yan ọkú tèmi Dr. Elias tó yan as Chief Justice of Nigeria, one of the leading brains, legal brains, not just in Africa but in the world. Ọmọ ní India, ó ti lọ consult on bẹ̀. Ṣàṣà ní ìlú ní Africa tí ò ti lọ láti bá wọn ṣe constitution wọn àbí kó pè fún consultation kan. Ìgbà tó fi ṣe Chief Justice wa ní 1972. Àwọn bàbá tó ń ṣe union nígbà yẹn wọ́n ṣe reception fún wọn. Nígbà tí CJ máa sọ̀rọ̀, ẹ̀dẹ̀ rántí pé he was president of the International Court at The Hague. Ti ayé, court ayé, òun lálága wọn. Bọ̀ kó tó di yẹn, ó kọ́ ṣe ti Nàìjíríà náà. Ó wá sọ fún wọn ní reception yẹn wípé wọ́n á gádà àwa àbúrò wọn ọkùnrin obìnrin, wọ́n á gádà wa jọ ká bá lè máa dáwó láàrin ara wa, ká máa ṣe scholarship fund, ká máa ran àwọn ọmọ wa, ọmọ èèyàn wa, ọ̀rẹ́ wa tí Ọlọ́run ò yọ̀ǹda fún kán bá lè rí iléèwé lọ, secondary school, university education kan rí gbà. Èyí tó jẹ́ pé à ń ṣe meetings mélòó kan ní ọdún tá à ń dáwó. Wọ́n fi èmi ṣe treasurer ní 1968. Mo gbà lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀gbọ́n mi, Papa Mr. Dosunmu, Papa Erelu Abiola Dosunmu. Àwọn ṣiṣẹ́ ní bank nígbà yẹn. Mo gba iṣẹ́ lọ́wọ́ wọn títí mo fi retire ní about 4, 5 or 6 years ago as treasurer. Nígbà tí àwọn bàbá wa ẹ̀tọ́ ti wá jáde láyé ni àwa sọ pé àwa kọ́mítì yẹn, àwa náà ò ní Ìsàlè Èkó Descendants Union láti ìgbà yẹn lọ. Iṣẹ́ pọ̀ lọ́wọ́ wa o. Ẹ̀ náà rí bí Ìsàlè Èkó ti rí o. Àwọn ọmọ wa tó máa sọ̀rọ̀ ní èní yìí o. Ìtẹ̀ máa sọ mo wò pé touch on ìrò plan tí Lagos State Government tí mi ń gbọ́ wípé wọ́n máa reclaim the length of Adeniji Adele Road láti Òkè Pòpó. Wọ́n máa gbé dé Ìsàlè Èkó gan ni ní Upper King Street tá ń pè ní Ìgàdúngọ̀ràn sẹ́yìn dé Èbúté Èrò mi lè sọ, ṣùgbọ́n kí a wọ̀ on the alert. Nítorí wọ́n máa ṣe ń bẹ̀, a gbọ́dọ̀ sọ fún wọn wípé playing field, bombata field táwa ń ṣeré nígbà tá à ń kékeré, tó ti parẹ́ ń sẹ̀yìn, ó ti di market, motor park, school kan wà ń bẹ̀, ìrà ló wà ń bẹ̀ ń sẹ̀yìn. Bombata field yẹn nígbà tá a wà ní kékeré pẹ̀lú àwọn ẹ̀gbọ́n wa àbábúrò wa à ń lọ gbá tennis ball à ń pè gbá yẹn à ń lọ gbá ń bẹ̀ tàbá ti kúrò níléèwé láti dárayá and be healthy. Ibẹ̀ ni Teslim Balógun turning stadium after ní Surulere. Ibẹ̀ ló ti kọ́ bọ́ọ̀lù ẹ̀. Èmi rántí yẹn dáadáa. Bàbá Shitu, Imam Mosque ti Ọba Okunnu Mosque fún wa ní Ìsàlè Èkó. Bàbá Shitu, ibẹ̀ ló ti kọ́ football ẹ̀. Àwọn bẹ́ẹ̀ ti lè kà. Small Montana ni ó púpọ̀ nu wọn. Wọ́n ti kọ́ football. Experience ọ̀tún ọmọ imam ọ̀tún ní Victoria Street lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ ilé àwọn Àlìbalógun ní shop wọn wà. Ibẹ̀ ní experience ọ̀tún tó náà ti kọ́ football ẹ̀. Àwọn tí mẹ́ta ti ń pè yìí àwọn ni the first Nigerian football team to travel out of Nigeria lọ gbá football ní England, the first ever. Wọ́n wọ shoes nígbà yẹn ẹsẹ̀ náà fi gbá nímú ní England pẹ̀lú. Ṣùgbọ́n Bombata field kò sí mọ́ o níṣe sọ o ẹ bá sọ fún àwọn ìjọba wọ́n gbọ́dọ̀ restore Bombata field kan pè sí another location. Ibi tó ń reclaim, ibi táwọn ọmọ wa, àwọn ọmọ yín tán ìwà ní Ìsàlè Èkó, tán máa kọ́ football, tán máa play. Ó necessary pé kó wà bẹ́ẹ̀. So that àwọn ọmọdé tán ríṣẹ́ ṣe ń sẹ̀yìn, tán rí ibì kan lọ ní Ìsàlè Èkó àbílẹ̀ Èkó jálè, wọ́n máa rí ibì kan tó máa gbá football, wọ́n máa kọ́, wọ́n ní máa lọ jalè, wọ́n ní máa lọ ṣe become bandit láti gbé mind wọn kò ní evil things to good things. Ara iṣẹ́ tó wà nù iṣẹ́ wa nìyẹn. Ẹ má jẹ́ kí n tún gba time nítorí mo rí pé àwọn bíi mẹ́rin márùn ló máa sọ̀rọ̀. But mo gbọ́dọ̀ máa rán yín létí kí ni iṣẹ́ tó wà ní iwájú wa as ọmọ Ìsàlè Èkó. Thank God pé nínú gbogbo àdúgbò tó wà ní Èkó, ìlú Èkó, àwa ni Ọlọ́run fún ní àǹfààní tí a yìí ṣe ẹgbẹ́ yìí tá a gbà lọ́wọ́ àwọn bàbá wa, tá a náà gbà lọ́wọ́ àwọn bàbá wọn àti ìyá wọn. Èkó á gbé gbogbo wa o. Èkó á gbé wa o. Ọ̀rọ̀ mi náà ẹ gbà bẹ́ẹ̀ bí ṣókí. Salaam alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much. Ashegoni, sir. Thank you. We just had the opening remarks from Alhaji Femi Okuno, SAN, CON, President, Board of Trustees, Isale Èkó descendants. Please put your hands together for him. He has such amazing stories like no other. If you sit with him, you can spend like hours and you won't even bat an eyelid. So it's such a pleasure to have him with us. Thank you, sir. So the keynote speeches, and we have next with us, her name is Miss Faidat Ajibike Shomade, GM Lagos State Urban Renewal Agency. I'm just going to find the write-up on her because she's got quite an interesting one. Mrs. Shomade is described as the unseen town planner of the modern Lagos by her colleagues. Before her appointment as the general manager of Lasura, she served the Lagos state government for 35 years, retiring in the year 2018 as the General Manager, Property and Land Management at the Lagos State Development and Property Board, LSDPC. She holds a Master's of Business Administration degree in Management Marketing from the Ladoke Akintola University, Ogbomoso, and a higher national diploma in Town and Regional Planning from the Lagos State Polytechnic. In her over 3 decades of service, she had acquired rare skills and capabilities in leadership, urban planning, landing, and property management. It's nice to have you with us. Welcome, welcome. Please come through. I think you should maybe do it here. Thank you. Please put your hands together for her. Come on, you can do better than that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ìsàlè Èkó indigenes. I will stand on the existing protocol. I'm supposed to talk about urban regeneration of Ìsàlè Èkó and the way forward. I hope my voice is clear. Okay. I will not want to belabor you about the definition of regeneration, because we can call it regeneration, we can call it revamping, we can also call it revitalization. But the one being used by the state government is regeneration exercise. We talk about regeneration when a community or communities are blighted. They lack all the necessary facilities and basic infrastructures. Consequently, there will be need to regenerate. Going to my paper, we are all aware of history of regeneration in Lagos State. It started from the bubonic plague that led to the establishment of Lagos Executive Development Board, LEDB, in 1928, which happens to be in front of my grandparents' house at Reclamation. As young as I was then, I believe that is the only government agency in the state. And I always praying then, as young as I was, that I would love to work there. LEDB metamorphosed into LSDPC. And alas, I worked with LSDPC for 35 years. So like I already said now, LEDB and Ikeja Planning Authority metamorphosed into Lagos State Development and Property Corporation. The regeneration of 1928, we are all aware of the history of regeneration in Lagos State, starting from the bubonic plague that led to the establishment of Lagos Executive Development Board in 1928, which was in turn responsible for preparation of schemes such as that of Central Lagos after the 1951 acquisition. And the purpose of acquisition then was to put life and to create a commercial entity within the Central Lagos. It is interesting to know that urban regeneration actually started in Ìsàlè Èkó with the 1951 acquisition and subsequent preparation of Lagos Island Scheme, which also led to resettlement exercise that we have in Surulere, majorly Surulere area. The whole of Surulere was created as a resettlement scheme when acquisition of Central Lagos was done in 1951. It is also pertinent to know that Ìsàlè Èkó is no longer that small community of the 1950s, but one that is sufficiently urban with a mixed ethno-racial population and a center of commerce as patronized from not just parts of Nigeria, but all the whole of West Africa. This and the history of small trading center has made Ìsàlè Èkó the destination of eyes, and our involvement have become an interesting subject to all and sundry. Isale landmarks and monuments, some of which are well known to us, such as Gaidugon, that leads to Oba Palace, the confluence of three religion centers. When you get to Enowa, you see the mosque, you see the church, and you see the Ojubo. And then you are living amicably. Nobody cares about whether you are a Muslim or you are a Christian or you are doing the other one. And also we have Igiojo Olobun, the initiation center for the newly elected Obas. We have Idoluwo, Obanikoro, Enowa, and all that stuff. Among other streets within the community. These communities are laced with several peculiarities, such as arts and craftsmanship they are involved in, trade and commerce, among others. All this and more could detect the projected population of these areas, and thus their regeneration requirements need not be addressed based on individual merits. The ever-changing face of Ìsàlè Èkó is indeed of great concern to Lagos State government, who, while striving to preserve the heritage of Ìsàlè Èkó, aims to make it a worthwhile 21st century economy of repute, according to Mr. Governor, Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu's agenda. This aspiration of urban regeneration and development is expected to be implemented by Lagos State Urban Renewal Agency. Consequently, I'm kind of wearing a two caps presently, being an indigene of Lagos State by my father from Ojo Olobun, and also being the general manager of the office responsible for regeneration of Lagos State at large. The Lagos State Urban Renewal Agency, LASURA, an agency of government under the Lagos State Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, has the mandate to monitor and identify areas qualified for upgrading in Lagos State and advise government on redevelopment or regeneration programs accordingly. The agency is also saddled with the preparation and implementation approved state urban upgrading and urban redevelopment projects, the holding, administering, and maintaining government acquired properties within redevelopment or renewal project area, as is being executed in Lagos Island under the 1951 acquisition. I don't know whether I'm worthy of saying this, that because I have my mother here, Mommy Folami, you know, the acquisition of 1951 of Central Lagos, like I initially said, was purposely for creating a commercial city in Lagos State, in the Central Lagos rather. And consequently, a lot of property were acquired, compensation paid, and this led to PPP process. We give the property to individuals to redevelop, so we create a commercial entity, which is concentrated along Nnamdi Azikiwe, Ereko, Martins. The acquisition was based on 13 subsectors. And we are still, when you say we, LASURA is still an authority over those properties. So when I say that we administer, we maintain, and we acquire properties within redevelopment or renewal project areas. That's the main reason that we are into that. As of today, the LASURA team is working to ensure that the above statutory responsibilities are well executed through a thorough evaluation and rebuilding of our foundation. Thus, we have embarked upon by preparing the LASURA regulations as with other sister agencies. We have tied our responsibility of holding, administering, and maintaining government acquired properties by property identifying LASURA properties starting from Lagos Island, Ìsàlè Èkó. I also must say this, that early this year, by the advice and directive of Mr. Governor, we engaged a physical planning consultant to work on Lagos Island North. That is to create a master plan for projection of regeneration exercise for the scheme. However, in the preparation for a holistic redevelopment of blighted areas in the state, Lasura recently declared 9 areas as such. They are Ilasan Housing Scheme, Ikota, Makoko, Obalende, Shomolu, Bariga, part of Ifelodun, Badia Ijora, Adeniji Adele. We also have parts of Ìsàlè Èkó and the area called Gorodom, all within Lagos Island. And I could remember when this publication was made, a lot of Lagosians visited my office. That what is the purpose of this your regeneration? You want the government to take our father's land. You want the government to do this. They are not looking at regeneration from bringing life into a decayed environment that is existing within Ìsàlè Èkó. And they told me a lot of stories that health center was meant to be somewhere, but they kicked against it. This was supposed to be somewhere, they kicked against it. So such are the effect of not having proper regeneration program. As you are aware, our parent ministry, the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, has almost concluded the preparation of Lagos Island Model City Plan. Lagos Island in totality, from the work being done by the ADASA, is 600 hectares stretch of land from beyond the bridge, beyond Kata Bridge, Eko Bridge, Third Mainland, Lubiri area, down to Akpongbo and Outer Marina. That is just describing the boundary of Lagos Island in totality. Regeneration and intervention project, as the case may be, we help to avert urban decay by bringing back character and sense of place to such degraded area. These interventions are targeted at making Lagos a 21st century economy in accordance with the team agenda of Mr. Governor. The regeneration option and way forward proposed for Ìsàlè Èkó, as with any other area in Lagos State, is participatory and inclusive planning. I must also include that we should be objective when we are working with government, when we are making proposal for regeneration. It should not be for a selfish interest. A lot of us have visited Singapore, and we know where Singapore started, where they were, and not to talk about Dubai, that we are all going every time. So we should be positive in advising the government. So the Lagos State is in participatory and inclusive planning. We have engaged with several stakeholders, especially property developers and tenants of Lasura properties in Lagos Island in the recent past. And the state government has assured them of planning and working with them through the development process. This approach is that of bottom up, where all stakeholders engage actively with policy actors to prepare suitable regeneration proposals and plan. We hope with this, we should have a clear process and templates on urban regeneration in Lagos that will attract other stakeholders to partner with us on reducing urban decay in Lagos, one community after the other. So my position is that the way forward, when an individual cannot do the regeneration of Ìsàlè Èkó or of any community, and the foreign partners, they are more interested in writing submission rather than bringing financial assistance for the whole redevelopment. However, for a regeneration to take place, there is need to have a study. When you have a study and you have a master plan, the proper land uses will have been taken, the character of each community will have been taken, the population of community like Ìsàlè Èkó that we are talking about, the population density during the day differs to the population density in the night, because a lot of people come from the outskirts to come and trade on Lagos Island and Ìsàlè Èkó in particular, particularly my own compound. It is called Oju Olobun. It's not because it's a dirty place. Obun in Benin means market. That is the hub of a market city. And what are we doing about it? Oju Olobun is still the way I knew it about whatever my ages ago. It's still like that. They are still selling shower and kwanla and shedudu and what have you there. But what I'm saying is that we as Omo Ìsàlè Èkó should join hands with government when they are making a plan like this, so that we can contribute meaningfully, so that our need, our request can be attended to. I'm part of the committee that is looking into Dal Anderson's work. He's working on Isale, Lagos Island. And the question is, how many communities do we have in Lagos Island? You must be able to identify each community that falls within Lagos Island, because their character differs. And the proposed growth of 20 years you are making cannot be an holistic one size fits all. What will fit Ìsàlè Èkó may not be ideal for the other side of Lagos Island. Then we also want to know the population, like earlier said, population density during the day and during the night. Daddy mentioned something about Bombata Field. I know Bombata Field, Jankara, Pelewura, as where we go and play. Jankara, my grandparents used to sell there. And now they've pulled down. We are proposing shops there. And my position is, we are killing this island. People will come in the morning and they will trade. By 6, 7 o'clock, they vacated the place. The place is becoming deserted. And we're also proposing to put cinema. Who is coming to watch the cinema? Let us look at Ìsàlè Èkó critically. Let's bring life there. Majority of us can't go to Ìsàlè Èkó unless on Sundays. That is the only time you want to go to your family house. So we need to be part of the action being taken by government, so that we can establish what we feel like having. For Pelewura, we are proposing market. My opinion is that it should be an housing estate. We have Adeniji Adele on the left. That area of Adeniji Adele housing estate is not always deserted because people are residing there. But this side of Adeniji Adele, where we have Bombata, Jankara, Pelewura market, you go there like 6, 7, you are even afraid of even passing through the community. So what I'm saying is that a way forward, government is doing its own bit. It's doing its own bit by proposing, by engaging a consultant to work on the master plan of the whole of Lagos Island. But that is not enough. For each community, that is Ìsàlè Èkó and all of that community, we should be involved. No, I'm okay. So don't let me belabor you with all this. But my own final statement is that we should be involved, and we should encourage our boys within the city to be more productive. And we too should have a sense of belonging when it concerns the issue of Ìsàlè Èkó. Thank you very much.
Put your hands together for Ms. Faidat Ajibike Shomade, GM Lagos State Urban Renewal Agency. I think she raised some really good points there, and I liked all the ideas. And it would be nice if we would all just key into the vision, especially some of the ones that she shared with us this evening. I really liked your speech. So we're moving on to the next person for the keynote speech. His name is Mr. Lukman Oshodi, Project Director, Arctic Infrastructure. And let me try and read up. Please welcome him as he comes on stage. Come on, we can do better than that. Yeah, that's better. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. Lukman Oshodi is a Commonwealth Professor, Fellow, and Project Director of Arctic Infrastructure, AI, a multidisciplinary private organization with a broad focus on infrastructure, delivery, urban development, and the environment. Lukman Oshodi is an infrastructure, urban development, and city system strategist. He, alongside other 10 global experts, was a member of the technical committee for the 2018 International Award for Urban Innovation, the 4th Award for Urban Innovation, and was appointed in May 2018 as one of the 4 international jury members by the Metropolis World Association of the Major Metropolises, based in Barcelona, Spain. He joined 3 other global experts from Canada, please keep clapping as I read, the Netherlands and Argentina, to access and select 6 pilot projects from the submissions by the government of major cities across the world as part of the 2nd edition of the Metropolis pilot projects from the year 2018 to 2020. Well done, son. Welcome. Let me welcome you. Keep clapping as it comes up, please. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I have a presentation, very brief one within the time I have. Good afternoon. Let me stand on the established protocol by Baba Alhaji Femi Okuno, the moderator, Mrs. Shola, and of course the GML Asura, Alhaji Ajibike Shumade. So I will take, yes, the presentation. The slides. So I have 20 minutes to deal with this, and I really want to make use of that time judiciously. Oh, okay, that's fine. Thank you. So what I am to deal with is a feature of Ìsàlè Èkó. Where do we see ourselves, and where do we see Ìsàlè Èkó, perhaps in the next 20 years, in the next 40 years, in the next 50 years? Where do we see Ìsàlè Èkó to be? And that will be the focus of my presentation within the next 20 minutes. If we are looking at the future of any community, the future of any city, it will be ideal to understand the history, where that community is coming from, and of course, understand the current situation. What are the issues at stake within that community presently? And yes, thank you. So that will be able to help us to make projections and build scenarios on what the future should be. So if we are looking at the future of Ìsàlè Èkó, permit me, I will go into the history, but the history will be more of that of urban development, not necessarily on the history of chieftaincy title and all that. Let me focus on the urban development because we are looking at the regeneration way forward for Ìsàlè Èkó. Kindly move to the next slide, please. Kindly. So in the history of Ìsàlè Èkó, briefly, there is a statement we picked from the website of Ìsàlè Èkó Descendant Union that has been doing so much for that community. And the history is talking about certain key things, maybe around 1400 when Ìsàlè Èkó began, and key things to be picked from that history. Thank you. So the history basically is saying the history of Ìsàlè Èkó is inextricably tied to the history of what is today known as Lagos State, described as a bush full of swamps and lakes. We need to keep in mind that word, bush full of swamps and lakes. Pre-settlement, Lagos was a visiting point. That's another key issue we need to keep note of fishermen and traders. Then they said Ìsàlè Èkó, which translates to a location of Èkó. Then we have a later called Lagos. Ìsàlè Èkó started as the home Home is another key point that we need to take note of. Home of Aromire, a pepper farmer. Pepper farmer is another key thing, and of course, a farm settlement. So what it means is that if we are talking about swamps and lakes, that means we are talking about water. So that means the origin of Ìsàlè Èkó is connected to water. If we are talking about settlements and home, as we are able to pick from that history, that means we are talking about a residential community. If we are talking about visiting, the medium of visiting, that is closely connected to transportation. And if we are talking about fishermen and traders, that means commerce is well entrenched in Ìsàlè Èkó at the beginning. And if we are talking about Aromire, pepper farm, and all that, so that means we'll be dealing with food and agriculture. So at the beginning of Ìsàlè Èkó, these 5 issues, they are there. So it will be on this basis we'll be able to see where Ìsàlè Èkó is currently and where the future should be. So in the next slide, we're able to see a picture of around 1929. We could see that that is a longer period from 1400. And in 1929, what we are seeing in this picture is that Ìsàlè Èkó is a densely populated community. So it has been like that, and as at today, this is the picture in a 2000. So it still remains a densely populated community. And one thing we need to equally keep in mind is that it's a pedestrian community. So that means in whatever action that we are taking in the future, we need to keep this in mind. So these are the different growth pattern as the city, as the settlement emerges. Kindly move forward. So we're able to see the history. So, and what we see here is that from 1929 to this point, this is where we are. But let us move to the current situation of Ìsàlè Èkó. So this is the current situation where we are. So we are talking about water, which has been there from the beginning. So water today, from what we have seen, is not closely connected to Ìsàlè Èkó. If you look at Ìsàlè Èkó as a community, you could see that the ring road has been able to stop the water and the community. It becomes a barrier between the two. And what we see is that in terms of fish resources distribution, yes, water could play some role, and Ìsàlè Èkó is maybe benefiting from that processes. But one thing that water is doing is the issue of a conduit for open defecation. If you move around that corridor, maybe in the morning or in the evening, you could see number of people lining the edges of the bridges to do this open defecation. So there is need to really think about water. The issue of a settlement residential, we have seen how this has grown from a bungalow that we saw in 1929, where now we have a low-rise multi-floor developments, congestion predominantly a low-income area, and we have old bungalows faster giving way to multiple floor building. Then transportation, basically transportation is about land base. We are not seeing that vibrant water transportation system is yet to really kick off and really take Ìsàlè Èkó to where it should be as a community. So within the community, we have Okada tricycles and all that. Cars are also very active, but many streets are suitable for pedestrians. So we have a commerce. We, in Ìsàlè Èkó and the entire Lagos Highland, we have been able to make a good progress in this. We have been able to include logistic issues, and to the delight of the ancestors that yes, this has been able to achieve a very credible level of results. So commerce has been good. Food and agriculture, if we are talking about food is still there. GM has mentioned shower, panla, and all that at Ujualobun. That means we are still very good in that area. But agriculture in terms of farming, in terms of production, I really don't see that as at today. Then we have the sixth one. Initially, we are talking about 5, but now we have 6 indicators. So the sixth one is the tourism. So tourism has been the articulation of different artifacts, monuments, histories, and all those things have become a sixth indicator for development to measure whatever happened in Ìsàlè Èkó. So tourism has become part of the process so that in the future, when development is coming, tourism will be a major issue that we need to look at. But then the Red Clay group, and of course the culture committee of Ìsàlè Èkó Descendant Union, they have done tremendous work on tourism, but we still have a long way to go. On tourism, we have a key tourism elements. One of them is the first stop in Lagos. If you look at this picture very well, where we have the first tap, you can see the competition between that tap and the different commercial activities. So this will form the future of what will likely happen, that competition between what we take as a tourism elements and commercial activities will become very fierce in the future, because these people staying around this, they may not understand the key value of what this tap represents for the city of Lagos, and of course, particularly for Ìsàlè Èkó. So just like when I was with the Commissioner for Physical Planning in Edo State sometime in 2019, if we understand that Benin, moat is very key to the history of Benin, and of course to the culture of Benin. We were in the vehicle together, and we were going. She was trying to show me the moat. He said I should look at one. I said I couldn't see anything. He said, okay, driver, slow down. We will soon get to another. So the driver slowed down. By the time we move forward, he showed me another one. I said I couldn't see anything. So we parked. He said, that is the moat there. And I say, all I'm seeing is overgrown canal. This moat is linked to your own culture. It's linked to your history. So it should be better than this. What I'm looking for is something well labeled that says, okay, the battle of this happened in this particular moat. These are the people that fought in this battle. This is the way this moat work and things like that. I couldn't see anything. So there was no value connected to the city of Benin based on that moat. So the same thing is applicable is what we are seeing here. And of course, I look at Ilupesi Hall. Ilupesi Hall in those days is the meeting point for us in Lagos Island, the people from Lafiaji, from Campus, from Petedo, from Ofin, from Ologu, all of us meet there. You know, for us from Oshodi, if we are going there, is either we take Oyebanji, Pelewura, get to Enowa, and then get to Ilupesi Hall that we are going. If we are not using that, we could go through Aroloya, Agarawu, Dosumu, get to where we are going, or possibly use a Koilo or Nola axis. But then today, that is gone. So this is the current situation of the city. So what I see here, the way the Ìsàlè Èkó is constituted today, what I can see is a private capital, that most of this development came about through private capital. And if we look at the quantum of government investment, it is more on what we call a grand infrastructure, perhaps the road, the drainage system, the car park, and the public infrastructure like healthcare facilities like GM mentioned and schools. But if we are looking at the key elevated infrastructure like housing, the commercial building and all that, all these they are coming from a private capital. And then when you look at this city critically, you will see that the issue of land is a big one, because everybody is trying to protect his own from encroachment. What I have, I need to build it as quick as possible. But the larger, the particular group I will give a commendation to are the developers who work within this environment. If we look at the picture we have in 2019 and we compare it to what we have, we need to give kudos to those developers. They work within the limit of the resources available to them, and of course the expertise available to them, to be able to get to this level. But do we get it better? We may say, okay, no, we are not there yet. So in looking at the future, how do we strengthen this category of people to do it better? So we may not necessarily look for the foreign people like GM mentioned, but we can do it in our own way, perhaps with some level of support and collaboration. So, but this is the city, and this is where we are, but we can improve on this. So these are the different areas in the area of infrastructure, because if you look at this building, one will be wondering how they manage water supply from the public system, how they manage wastewater, how they manage a fecal sludge system, how they manage a soak away system. So a whole lot of infrastructure renewal is necessary. A whole lot of infrastructure upgrading is necessary. So if we look at the Dumagu axis around the Jankara area, we could see that that side is cut off. But I understand that from what the GM said, that a lot of efforts are going on in that regard. So now in looking at our future, so one thing will be very key. And of course, we need to look at it that, okay, what will future be? So the future, we have two major options to go with. Is it that we just say, okay, the Ìsàlè Èkó has always been there since 1400. Let's just continue, things will continue to sort itself out, and we could maintain that position. The second option is to say, okay, can we begin to have an articulated approach on how development are undertaken in this community? So that second approach is that, okay, perhaps we could adopt a holistic or area-wide regeneration process. So we have that two options to take. But in taking those two options, one thing is very key, which is a population. If we say we are staying where we are, population is very key. If we say we want to go in another direction and begin to have articulated approach, population is very key. So in having a population, we could use two scenarios as well. Lagos State government has made good investment in preparing what we call a Lagos Island West strategic plan. Sometime in 2010 or 2012, they have been able to do that, and we are able to get good data from that document. So now that document is saying the growth rate of a population in that area is about 8%. And we have another document from Lagos Bureau of Statistics that is looking at the holistic population of Lagos State, which bases a growth rate at 3.2%. So to be moderate with what may likely happen in Ìsàlè Èkó, in these two scenarios I mentioned earlier, let us use the moderate figure from Lagos Bureau of Statistics, which says 3.2%. Kindly move forward. So that means as of today, where we have a Lagos Island West population as 820,172, the population in 2040 could be about 1.4 million people. That's relatively about 70%. So that means if we get to that point and we say, okay, we are not doing anything, we'll be dealing with a much more population, infrastructure will become overwhelmed, housing will become so competitive that ability to really rent or to really get what people want in terms of housing them will become a big issue. So the commerce and trading will record exponential growth. That is, if we remain where we are, if we don't take any action, delivery of mixed-use buildings will continue, will rise in favor of commercial activities. That is what will happen around the Ojogiwa, Idulu, and Jankara area that GM mentioned. Density and occupancy ratio will increase beyond the provisions of the regulation. Rising profile of commercial activities will attract more economic migrants if we don't do anything. Infrastructure public water infrastructure will become overwhelmed as informal service provider will strengthen their market share. So that means that we have more people from other parts of the country, perhaps at the north, who will continue to push a truck in that community. Proliferation of makeshift toilet facilities on the land are mostly on the waterfront. If we look at the transportation system, it will become restricted because today, if you go to maybe water access and all that, they will say, go slow moon, LSA. That is, we are still at the population of about 820 something thousand. But by the time we get to 1.4 million people, I'm wondering how the movement will be if, as of today, goes slow moon, LSA. So what I see is that, and if you look at the history of transportation on highland, we have seen how the era of Molwe has been able to come down to downfall or to those low occupancy vehicle introduced by Ademola Adeniji Adile when he was the chairman. And of course, we have seen how Okada came in. So, but by 2040, if the population grew than this, I assume that something lower than Okada may actually come into play by that 2040. So then we have an issue of urban poverty and all that will possibly increase, and we will have overloads in different places of Ìsàlè Èkó if we remain where we had access. We are taking a scenario 1. For scenario 2, the Lagos Island West strategic plan has been able to put us forward. I talked about water the other time. This plan is trying to connect the community back to the water. That is what this plan is trying to achieve, among other development opportunities. So we could have improved infrastructure delivery, consolidation on indigenous best practices in land accessibility and management in the community, integrated transport system. So possibly my concern here is that what I'm seeing here is that the quantum of bungalows that we have in this environment keeps reducing. And if we look at it critically, some of these bungalows house most of our ancestral activities, most of our artifacts, most of our ojubos and all that, they are all within this bungalow. So if we are looking at the future and we can see the growth that housing are coming up in different places. So where will all this bungalow be? Those are the thoughts we need to have for the future. How do we continue to preserve these shrines and of course this ancestral site? So those are the things that we need to look in the future. In really talking about regeneration, if we want to go in that direction, stakeholders engagement is very key, like GM said, and in this process, LASURA, Lagos State Government, is a very critical stakeholder that we need to hold on to. The elders internally, Alhaji Baba, Femi Okuno, we need to begin to see them in the front, and of course, we need to begin to see them behind, so that as the young people are moving, they are always there. Then strengthen the cultural and environment committee of the Ìsàlè Èkó Descendant Union to play major role is very key. Engage a partners, a consultant to guide the process. With, like GM said, we have the consultant dealing with Lagos Island Model City Plan. That is very key. So there is need to have that interface. So that means IDU need to really prepare for that process and make a reposition of Ìsàlè Èkó known. So quite a number of issues that we can deal with, but I believe this is a process and we can get there. So if we all agree to regeneration plan or regeneration of Ìsàlè Èkó, I think it all behoves on all of us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sorry, I had to hover around so you would know that we had a time constraint. Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for him. Come on now. Shaiti Journey, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So we've had Mr. Lukman Oshodi and we've had Ms. Faidat Ajibike Shomade. It would be nice to take 1 or 2 questions. If anyone has questions, just 1 or 2. Any questions? Okay. Please, can you pass him the microphone?
Thank you very much. My name is Habib Abiodun Soni. I came a little bit late, but I want to find out what are the historical links to the situation we now find ourselves in Lagos Island. When many of us are growing, I'm young anyway, when many of us were growing up, Lagos Island was a beautiful place to stay in, to live in. A lot of our fathers will tell us we can do a lot of things right in front of our homes, especially looking at the drainages in our front. But today, all of this is gone. I am of the opinion that we should look back, because those who fail to learn from history will probably continue to repeat the problem of history. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Who do you want to answer your question? Mr. Oshodi?
I think Mr. Oshodi, please.
Thank you. Let me give you mine. Do you have a mic there? Let me give you mine. Okay, so I'll just take one more so that he can address. Can we pass the mic to her? She's there.
Good afternoon. My name is Aduke Gomez. I'd like to address my question to the GM. To follow up on your comment in Singapore, when Singapore was regenerating, they kept a part of the old city and they kept it old. Now, that part, at the time, there was a lot of pressure to demolish the old part of the city, but that part of the old city is now one of the most tourist visited parts, and the same in Stockholm as well, in Sweden, again in the 60s when they were regenerating. So I think it's important when we are regenerating to understand that as Mr. Oshodi said, Lagos Island has had a history of people living in it for over 500 years. If everything is regenerated and new, that history has to be kept. And that heritage, the built heritage, the evidence of it has to be also kept. So I hope that is also in your plan. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? I think, okay. So this is the last one. Can we pass the microphone to him?
I have to apologize. Number one, the sense that I cannot stand up. My name is Ajayi Bembe, Lai Ajayi Bembe. My question is for the GM, who, of course, I would say is my daughter, because the father is a very, very close friend of mine. We've actually grown up together. My fear is this. We've seen this urban regeneration before, particularly in Central Lagos, and we know what happened. The owners are not able to return back to the, or everything went straight to non-indigenous. Now I'm looking at Ìsàlè Èkó, particularly my place and my sister here. I cannot even get there today. I cannot get to Ruin or Idolo. Even my grandfather's place, Iga Baniko, cannot get there. You see, unfortunately, we have been deceived for a long time by the state government. I don't know what plan they have. If I have to look at it, I'm not a plan, I'm a town planner, but I've done a bit in development. If this thing can be done in phases, that as you move out some people, you get a point, do their place and get them back. Now we're talking about some feeling along Adeniji. Say, if they start from there, they can expand to the lagoon and then move people adjacent to that place back to where they have done. You see, where at least we can get our eyes on what they are doing. I'm sorry, you see, because we have seen it. Today, they say we're a minority. We're a minority, and then we're not getting anything. When I get to the Lagos State government now, or Lagos State Secretariat, I don't know anybody there. Even if I mention my name, to tell me we don't know who he is. It's quite unfortunate. That's my question.
Thank you very much, sir. Can we just take the last one? It's right here. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. My name is Adele Jinadu. I want to thank the two presenters, but my own observation will be directed at the Ìsàlè Èkó Descendants Union. I think as Lies just said, we have had too many promises broken. It is easy to talk of we are doing participatory, we are doing inclusivity, but you cannot have either of them if there is neither trust, nor accountability, nor transparency. What we have lacked, in spite of all the big talk about inclusivity, and is that there is neither transparency nor accountability provided. Just to take 2 or 3 recent examples, look at the area from Alimosho, from Alimosho down to when the sea was being reclaimed. Up to today, nobody knows what is being done, what is the purpose of that. And it has implications for our people. We've not seen any environmental report about what is in fact being done. There's no bill before the House of Assembly that this is what we are doing. Then the old sort of thing arising in Ilubiri, up to nobody knows. Isale Gogo, up to today, where is it? So I think the issue is for Isale Gogo, forget about government.
Thank you, sir.
Take your own social action and do community self-development.
Thank you,
and
sir.
we can talk about that later.
Thank you very much, sir. So we have 4 questions there. I'll need one more mic so that they can answer simultaneously. Okay, yes, one online. What is the focus of the regeneration of Ìsàlè Èkó? Is it residential or commercial? I think that's a great question. That came from our online viewers. Sorry to act like we're excluding you, but we know you're very important to this. Thank you. So we have 5 questions in total. If you can just get through that. Yeah.
I will take it from the last question.
Okay.
He said, what is the regeneration program for Ìsàlè Èkó? Is it residential or commercial?
Yes.
For Ìsàlè Èkó, it has to be a mixed development. We are going to have the residential and we can't take away the commerce out of Ìsàlè Èkó. Like I earlier said, Ojo Olobu is the hub, market hub of, that is the name. Okay. Oh, so sorry. So we can't take away commerce out of Lagos Island. And also, we can't take residential out of Lagos. Consequently, it's going to be a mixed development. Earlier on, I made mention of Peleura, Yankara, Bombata market. I must say that the governor in his wisdom has proposed Jankara market for residential housing scheme. So, however, we have the Peleura as a market center. That is proposed construction of, shops for Peleura and also Bombata. So consequently, the regeneration program for Lagos Island is a mixed development. Then Daddy talk about lack of trust concerning regeneration, which is true. A lot of us are also wary. Like presently, we are proposing regeneration of Adeniji-Adele low-cost housing estate, phases 1 to 4. But there's no way we can do it in phases because the problem of Ilubiri is affecting this part of Lagos Island because of the backward flow of the lagoon. So consequently, they have to be relocated because presently we in phase 1, about 5 buildings were in deteriorated states, and they pulled them down. And what the government did, they gave some people flats in Iba, some at Amuwodofi, and we are paying rent for some. But our recent visit to Adeniji-Adele, particularly phase 3 and phase 2, the level of deterioration of those structures is so huge. Consequently, some of the buildings may have to be pulled down. And when we are doing total regeneration of Adeniji-Adele, we have to resettle everybody residing there. And the position of Mr. Governor is that we should ensure that we have accommodation for them rather than paying rent, because you can't fill a part and leave a part. So the issue of regeneration in phases may be difficult in some areas. For Isale Gogon, we did a land pooling strategy to redevelop the community, because the family houses are in 30 meters, 80 meters, and what have you. So the encouragement the Mr. Governor then did was to do a land pooling. The structure is completed to about 85%, but change in administration has created problem. But now we are taking it over. The families that the land was taken away from, they have been given flats. Some are having 2 flats, some 1 flat, based on the size of the land taken with them. And at the end of the day, the property is coming back to the family. So that is transparency on its own. But government procedure, bureaucracy can delay things. And also must say that Mercy Children Hospital, I think a lot of us know Mercy Children Hospital along Itafaji area there. The government is presently proposing reconstruction of another Mercy Children Hospital. It will still maintain the name based on the uniqueness of the hospital. So we are having that directly beside Adeniji-Adele Phase 4.
Okay.
I don't know whether I'm able to cover the questions.
Yeah, let's take the rest of the questions. Yeah, the answers.
Thank you.
We have 3 more answers, yes.
Yes, just a quick one. In responding to one question directed to me, which has to do with a historical link of Ìsàlè Èkó with the current situation. In my presentation, I mentioned 5 key areas which were there at the beginning, the 5 key development indicators. And as at today, we have 6. But out of these 6, if we are going to rank Ìsàlè Èkó in terms of performance, we will say commerce and trading, that Ìsàlè Èkó is doing extremely well in that regard. And in doing well, what it means is that you will keep attracting different population from different places. Those who have a business to do, and those who do not have a business to do, they will keep coming, because it's like the only area that keeps attracting people. And the consequence of that is that if you don't have commensurate infrastructure, commensurate facilities to accommodate these people coming, they become something else, especially some we call economic migrants who are just seeking for, let me go to Lagos. They said this is a land of opportunity. Let me go and also. So they get to Lagos and they see that there is a different world entirely. No accommodation, no any social facilities to support them. So they become something else on the street. So as the commerce is growing, if there is no any commensurate infrastructure or facility to support the projected or the increase in population, definitely we are going to have the situation like this in our hands. So, and I think some of the regeneration being mentioned by the GM could possibly go a long way in addressing some of these social anti-behavior and social vices we are talking about here. So that will be my position on that. Commerce and trading need to go hand in hand with economic and social infrastructure to support them. But it is a long way, but we can always get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for Ms. Faidat Ajibike Shomade and Mr. Lukman Ojuri. You have been absolutely fantastic. You've given us a lot to think about. And like we all should remind ourselves that it's not just enough to talk. We must also do. Get up when you're called, come in when you're asked to come in and just show up, show up for the love of Ìsàlè Èkó. Thank you very much. If I could just escort you up the stage. Hostesses, please can you get them off the stage for me? Thank you very much. Let's put your hands together for them as they walk off the stage. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on very quickly to the panel discussion. I'm going to try and introduce as quickly as I can. Maybe I won't go through everything. Kolade, your own is very long, bro. I'm going to read only half. What's wrong with you? Who's going to read all that grammar there? So as I call your name, if you're here, please, you can come forward and just take a seat. We'll do the clapping at the end of the introduction. So first up, we have Professor Taibat Lawansin. Taibat Lawansin is a professor of urban planning at the University of Lagos, Nigeria, where she leads the Pro-Poor Development and Urban Management Research Cluster. She is also co-director at the University of Lagos Center for Housing and Sustainable Development. She holds a PhD in urban and regional planning from the Federal University of Technology, Akure, Nigeria. She has conducted extensive research on issues relating to urban informality, livability, environmental justice, and pro-poor development. She is interested in how formal and informal systems can systemize in the emerging African city, and written or co-authored over 60 articles in peer-reviewed journals, books, and conference proceedings. We want to say welcome, thank you. It's nice to have you with us. Please put your hands together. I did say we'll do the clapping at the end, and then I forgot myself. Next up, we have Dr. Adu Okupe with a PhD in tourism leadership. That's a very interesting one. PhD in tourism leadership from the University of Surrey. Adu has over 10 years of research and advisory experience, infrastructure, tourism, and sustainable development projects in sub-Saharan Africa and Europe. She is passionate about tourism as a tool for sustainable development and is focused on social, cultural development and potential for contributing to national identity. She has significant work and research experience in the travel and tourism industry and has advised on global policy issues in the leisure and tourism sector, including the leisure elements of urban planning and development, especially with regards to sustainable urban planning, given the nature of cities as being places for work and play. Please welcome Dr. Adu Okupe to the, she's online. Okay, thank you. I caught you. I was just trying to run through it. Next up, we have Ms. Dolapo Oshunshino. Did I get that right? Oh, fantastic. Dolapo is a community organizer, producer, and lawyer based in Lagos. She has a strong social service background, having worked with young people in British and Nigerian communities. Her work centers on facilitating works of relationships within communities to provide local and global opportunities to its members. She is also the co-founder of the H Factor Collective, a social enterprise that creates intersections between art and policy using artistic intervention to bridge and build between institutions and communities. They're going to have to forgive me. I'm editing it so that we can get through this as quickly as possible. Welcome. It's nice to have you with us. Next up, we have an accomplished professional surveyor with over 30 years of experience in the execution of projects in various challenging environments. Mr. Kazim holds a BSc in surveying from the University of Lagos and MSc in geography and planning from the same university. He has undertaken a range of professional courses in the fields of planning, business management, and geographic information systems. He was part of the Lagos State Habitat 2011 Project Implementation Committee, which was a product of the Technical Committee for Policy Reform on Planning, Regulation, and Building Control under Governor Babatunde Fashona's agenda for transformation of Lagos into a homogeneous and sustainable city. He is currently the managing partner of Oak Surveys, a land surveying, engineering, and geoinformation firm based in Lagos and operating all over the Federation. Please come forward. Let me not even get into the second half. We'll be here clapping till tomorrow. Okay. We're going to the last panelist, architect Rotimi Fini, who is a graduate of Manchester and Birmingham Schools of Architecture, specializing in landscape and urbanism with extensive professional experience in both Nigeria and the United Kingdom. Having risen to the ranks of senior advocates in FMA Architects, one of Nigeria's oldest and most prestigious architectural practices, Rotimi has built a strong reputation in the Nigerian industry for design and innovation and professional excellence. A natural pragmatist, Rotimi believes that the role of architect must continue to involve primarily responding to society's demand for the profession. He is a strong advocate for a coherent national building code. May I say yes, yes, yes to that? Nice to have you with us. Okay. So we've got all the panelists up here. You can now give them a resounding round of applause now that they're here. And to take this panel through is Akim Adeniji Adele. Thanks for keeping it brief, I think. Mr. Akim Adeniji Adele holds a BSc Honours in Mathematics and Computer Science from the University of London's Goldsmith College and an MBA in Corporate Finance from the University of Leicester Management School. Dr. Adeniji Adele served as its Chief Technology Officer and Public Service Director of Microsoft between 2015 and 2018. He's also in Aspira Technology Solutions Limited, where he was the Marketing Director. Mr. Adeniji Adele has over 20 years hands-on experience in technology, having worked in different capacities in various companies. It gives me great pleasure to hand over the mic to you, Hakim. I will be back a bit. I'm still around. My name is Shalom Gaji, also known as Shoals, and I'm not going anywhere in it.
Thank you. Good afternoon once again. I've learned a lot today. I never knew the first tap in Lagos was in Ìsàlè Èkó. So that for me was definitely learning. I'd like to set the tone for the second second session. Once again, I'd like to welcome you to Ìsàlè Èkó Day. You know, we've said a lot today, and I think one thing that's important is that we understand that public and private efforts definitely critical to unlocking the regeneration efforts that we're talking about. A lot has been done in the past, but may I reiterate that a single focus is important for any form of urban generation to take place. So for us to reduce the deficits and barriers that have been plaguing these rural areas, it's important that we must also promote the strengths and the adaptive characteristics of Ìsàlè Èkó. Things like climate change, we must definitely look into that as well. Ms. Gomez said something about not letting go of the important things about Ìsàlè Èkó. For me, it's a question of regeneration or what I call gentrification. That is a very important question that I'd like to answer today. So that we don't waste too much time, I'll start with Dr. Okukwe, who is, she's online. My first question. Urban regeneration is sometimes criticized for eroding traditional lifestyles. What are your thoughts and how can this be addressed? Dr. Okukwe.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it's an honor to be here. Apologies that I'm not able to be there in person. I'm dialing in from Abuja right now, but thank you so much for having me to join this panel. I will also stand on existing protocol in terms of my responses, so thank you so much to all those that have already spoken. So one of the key challenges of urban regeneration is the challenge that we always want to think about gentrification. And it's important when we're looking at regeneration that we understand that moving forward cannot continue without an anchoring, and you cannot move forward without people understanding what exactly it is about that it is that makes a place or comprises a place. And so when you think about the sociocultural dimension of a place, right, and creating a sense of belongingness and a sense of identity, it is really about the inhabitants of a place. It's about the traditions, the culture, the customs, the heritage. And so what we try to look at is that, yes, it's good to move forward, but that you have to also have a cultural flavor. You have to still have some sort of authenticity. And to do that, you need to look at what people are doing. Who are the people that live here? What do they do? What are their lives about? And how do we move forward from there? And that's why I'm very pleased to hear what the first two keynote speakers spoke about in terms of when we're trying to move forward, let us also ensure that we carry people along. We do not erode the livelihoods. We do not erode the lifestyles of the people that have comprised the place, but that we also understand what it is that they need as we move forward. So who are the users? What are we moving forward for? So even if we look at the mixed use development, if we look at the commercial side, the residential side, who is going to comprise the future of Ìsàlè Èkó? Who is going to comprise the future of Lagos Island? Those are the questions that we need to start to really think about and come up with answers before we can come up with any solutions that will ensure that we don't we don't leave some people behind while we're trying to move forward. And so it's about inclusivity, and that's a very key component of urban planning and urban regeneration. Thank you.
Thank you for that. To Professor Lawrenson, is regeneration really possible in Ìsàlè Èkó? Is it really possible, or are we wasting our time?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. That's a really loaded one. I think regeneration is already occurring because every city, every community goes through cycles from birth to when it thrives to when it ages and decays, and sometimes when it dies and then when it rises again. And the threat that we face in Ìsàlè Èkó is that part of Lagos is decaying. Are we going to allow it to die? Because if it dies and it has to come up again, it will come up based on the interests of those who have the economic power to change it or to acquire it. And what we see is that I will start by placing the responsibility of how poorly we've managed that part of the city on the indigents, on the landowners, on the families who have land, who still are able to hold power over their properties. Because most of the properties there haven't been sold. They are usually on long leases to these people who are renting for 20, 30 years. It's usually an agreement, the developer's agreement that Lukman alluded to. It's usually between the families, the indigenous families, and those developers who have commercial interest in construction and what have you. So the thing is, what future do you see? When Adun was speaking, something occurred to me that the regeneration of Lagos is going to, Lagos Island, I will say, is going to be a contest between the users of the space, who are really the daytime population, and the indigents of the place, whose legacy, whose ancestry derives from that space, because there are two different cohorts and they're very different interests. And so for indigents who have a historic claim on the land, and who I will believe will want to have a future claim on the land, then there's fire on the mountain. There needs to be a strategic approach to engaging with government who has power over determining how Lagos is going to be. So regeneration is an opportunity, I will say, but it's also a dangerous opportunity if we don't do it right, and if we're not strategic and forward-looking about it.
So I was going to ask you another question, but I'll ask Mr. Kazim. So how can we avoid gentrification? That'll be my next question to you. But Mr. Kazim, what is Ìsàlè Èkó? What IDU, Ìsàlè Èkó Descendants Union? What are we doing to improve the environment and assist regeneration?
Thank you, Hakim. This is part of what we are doing. All this is part of it. And I think the union deserves a huge round of applause for them. So when we took over under Mr. Yomi Tokosi, the first thing we thought about on the long run is how do we rescue not just the union, because that was what was given to us, but we thought, we were thinking further, that the area itself was in need of help. So the first thing we did, meetings of the union used to be held in Ilupeju or VI. We said we were going back into that area. And to that, we got the Ìsàlè Èkó house. So everything we do now revolves around the house. We think this should be a rallying point for every indigene. Well, symbolic. Before we can now continue with this engagement of government and, if possible, private money. Because government cannot do it alone. Normally, when government wants to do it, we've had various people talk about trust. So the union is trying to act as a kind of go-between between the indigenes, government, and private individuals who want to come in. So this is where we are actually trying to position ourselves so that we're speaking for the indigenes and we're making sure that nobody is cheated. I also want to just allude to what Aduke Gomez mentioned. Part of our, that's why the annual Ìsàlè Èkó Day Walk is in its 4th year now. So we make sure we go around historical places, the palaces, the various ojubos, the first tap in Lagos, which we saw, is also part of the route of that walk. So we can assure you that all these historical monuments are being noted and taken care of. And I don't think there's any development that will demolish or destroy them. That's an important part of what we plan for the area.
So how can the union really assist the public and private sectors? I mean, we can't leave all this to Lagos State. So how can the union assist?
Yeah, so advocacy and a lot of noise.
Thank you. Mr. Finney. Ìsàlè Èkó and Ebute Metta appears to be on top of the list of buildings that tend to collapse. What are your thoughts on this, and how can we avoid this?
Good afternoon. All protocols duly observed. Building construction in general may seem very straightforward, but there are certain processes which have to be put in place, which in most instances in Lagos and in Nigeria as a whole are not rigorously followed. We've put together a very brief presentation. Excuse me, sir. Yes, so it's a very brief presentation, won't go on too long, but it's key to note when we speak of the legislation on ground, and there is legislation and it's good legislation. You can imagine a lot of our laws and bylaws are incorporated from other countries, but is it fit for purpose? Are there things which need to change? Of course, a lot needs to be addressed. I think the first thing to note is that for any building to come up, a client makes a decision, or the building owner makes a decision that you actually need a space to be able to carry out a particular activity. And if you think about it, the first person most people will call is either probably an architect that, you know, come and design this space. The architect's job, of course, is to really find out whether, to get a full description of the brief, put together some concept information and gather a team. Because we're speaking about building construction, or sorry, building collapse, the key member of this team in this instance is the structural engineer. Now, the structural engineer is primarily responsible for making sure, sorry, can we go back to slide 2? So the structural engineer is primarily responsible for making sure that the building's integrity is sound. You know, the building is standing. The next slide, please. And his job, apart from doing this, is also to make sure that he's engaged throughout the construction process. So there are laws on ground, and in Lagos State, you have to have an active structural engineer on ground throughout your construction. What he does or she does is to make sure 100% the materials which are brought in are monitored, the quality of the materials which are brought in are tested. And if this process is followed, being a client has engaged a set of professionals, the professionals are maintained on site throughout the construction process, then we shouldn't have any issues. However, if we move very quickly, we shouldn't have any issues. That is the ideal scenario. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. But okay, what happens, for instance, why are drawings not going in for building approval? Well, they're not enough government officials to be able to track all the illegal structures, which leads to weak enforcement. And when Lagos, and we have to be honest with ourselves, appeasements are rife. There are people who transgress, there are government officials who go and they leave whilst construction is still going, and there have been transgressions. So the next slide, please. Now, a quantified or qualified structural engineer has not been brought on board. Primarily, a lot of what we're talking about is it's commercial-driven construction, and in whose interest is it to be able to ramp up fees, construction or consultancy fees? You know, a lot of developers might shy away from that. Once again, the government officials who are meant to walk around and make sure 100% of the sites are being run or managed by qualified structural engineers, appeasement is rife. Next slide, please. Now, there are delays in reporting defects, and to note, you know, a lot of buildings show signs of defects before they actually collapse. And why does this happen? You know, the occupiers are simply unaware of who to report these defects to. If you see a building about to collapse, what is the number to call? If you see a crack in a building, which you're 100% sure is structural, who do you get in touch with? And of course, to also bring it to the fore that there are certain communities where enforcement might be a bit more difficult. Next slide. Before we talk about, I think I'll stop here before we go about possible solutions. But these are the problems. They're mostly legislative and following due diligence in how to knock up buildings.
Thank you. Mr. Oshunshina, apologies, yes. Now, I keep talking about gentrification and regeneration. I'm worried that if we embark on, you already said we've already started, it's a process that started already. How do we ensure that ancestral homes are not, people are not dispossessed of their ancestral homes? And also, at the same time, how can we guard against that? Thank you.
Well, I think, you know, if the buildings themselves are dilapidated and they can't be restored, then there has to be a resettlement program, a solid resettlement program, so that people are not displaced. Because once you displace people, you displace memories, you displace culture, you displace a lot of things. So I think the first thing is to make sure that there's a resettlement program for those who can no longer stay in those homes. But if the homes can be renovated or regenerated, then I think a question of, the people that own the homes need to be consulted. How can we sort of regenerate it? What are the things that you do? What are the skills that you have? How can we work in collaboration with you so that we can utilize these spaces? Because I know that, you know, I think that we need to also consider multi-use as well. Places, I mean, the spaces don't necessarily just have to be used for residential. They can be used for commerce. They can be used for trading. And I think that's something that a discussion that needs to happen. You know, how else can we optimize? How can we utilize these spaces so that we can optimize them, so that the people who are living there can generate revenue to sustain themselves and the properties themselves. So I think, yeah, there just has to be a resettlement program, and there has to be a co-plan that happens between developers and residents.
Thank you. Professor Lawson, What sort of economic and social benefit can be derived from what we're trying to do?
This conversation?
Yes.
Okay. I think the social benefits are really important. First, it brings to public attention that there are key stakeholders who may not necessarily be physically present in that space, but whose interests must be taken into consideration. And that's why I really like what Kaladi said about making a lot of noise. It's very important that it's in the public domain that, you know, we exist and that our interests must be taken into consideration. It was MQ Abiola that said we can't shave a man's head in his absence. I think it's important we push that narrative out, that there should be no regeneration in Lagos Island without the interests of indigents. And I think it's also important to recognize those indigents who have the technical capacity to engage. So indigents that are built environment professionals should be taking the lead in these kinds of conversations. So that is one benefit. The economic benefit is a city that is thriving is a city that has economic opportunities for those who live within. And for those who own property, the land value automatically goes up. But then the land value going up, it's important to ensure that standards are met, standards are kept, because the stress test comes when there's a threat of collapse. And if a building collapses, then it reverts to government. So how do you avoid your building becoming, you know, public property? By ensuring that it is well redeveloped, or it is, you know, you don't wait until there's a disaster before you fix your space. So I think it's important for us to also take responsibility for the properties that we have and to take responsibility for the communities. It's not enough to go once a year, which is really important, you know, to stamp authority in the space. But there are certain gatekeepers that really don't give a damn whether they are indigents anywhere. They are the current lords of the manor. So it's important that, you know, we kind of take back these communities. As a child, I used to go to Lagos Island, but it's not very easy for me to go there now as an adult. And it will take some doing for me to go with my children. And we need to change that. If you really don't have if you don't have a sense of identity, then it's difficult for you to go out and conquer the world, because which home are you going back to? So I think we need to document the history. The physical space is changing. So there's an urgent need to actually document that, whether in photography, whether in film and all of that. And especially for our elders who have these pictures from when they were growing up, there's a need to archive all of that and show that a Lagos existed before, you know, what we have now. And it is in selling of that glorious heritage that we're able to think forward to a better future that is that accommodates those who have come, but still retains the distinctness of those who are the indigents.
Thank you. You know, when we decided to the theme for today, urban regeneration of Ìsàlè Èkó, we wanted something that was we needed to kind of have tangible steps. We wanted something that we could take back after today. So my question is, what are the next steps? What do you think we should do? I'll just like each one of you to kind of.
Okay, I think the first step is to really see what the government is doing. The GM told us that they have a regeneration plan. What is our response to that? Mm-hmm. And I will think that the lowest hanging fruit is to get a team of 3 or 4 or 5 built environment professionals to start to engage with that, and for IDU to send a position paper to that plan. This is what we see about the future of our community, and we would like to engage with the developer or the master plan or whoever it is that is responsible for that. That would be the first. The second is to amplify these social and cultural benefits, and also to start to document. There's a group on Facebook, Nigerian Nostalgia Project. Having something similar for Lagos will be a step in the right direction, where we start to crowdsource these memories, you know, particularly the ones that may have been lost due to building collapse, due to change of use and things like that. Because we have a really important story to tell, and well, no one can tell it except, you know, we do the work that is required.
From our experience, we've learned that in situ upgrading works, and so when you work with the existing infrastructure that's within a space and try to enhance and improve it, then you get results. So it's really just about collaborating with the people who are there and asking them, you know, what improvements would you like to see, and helping them refine what is already in place. I think that's the first step towards regeneration.
Thank you.
As Prof said, the first step is trying to find out what the government is doing. We're looking at that, and that is what came about all this. And also, along those lines, we've been working with government in training tour guides. So I think there are about 40, about 40 people have undergone some kind of training with, I'm going around historical places in Ìsàlè Èkó. So that tells you at least whatever they have in mind, there are places of interest that won't be tampered with. So I think that's preservation of our historical monuments. And yes, the next thing is also the union putting together a proper monitoring team. Okay. When pre-COVID, what we had done was even to get the government at the best minimum, clear the drains, you know, help us with that. But I think they have their own strategy, but we will still try and work with them. And even if before regeneration starts, we give the place some semblance of facelift to make it look at least a bit appealing. So maybe within the next few years, December, maybe all of us will come with our kids and they'll partake in the Ìsàlè Èkó Day walk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Before you go, Dr. Kupe, we don't want to leave you online. Your thoughts, please.
So from a tourism perspective, right, tourism has a very important role to play in urban regeneration. I'm very happy with what Professor Lawenson and Dolapo have shared in terms of the need for us to consider multiple users, but also to be very inclusive, as well as the need for transformative spaces. Now, in terms of what we need to look at, I like to think of it as, you know, there's short-term, medium-term, and long-term plans that need to be taking place. So a lot of what we've said now apply for the short term and the medium term, but we need to really see that what is the economic, you know, what are the economic benefits that we want to derive, you know. Mr. Oshodi very kindly shared a lot about what we need to look at in terms of the history of Ìsàlè Èkó and Lagos Island. But then we say, is that how we want to continue commerce? Can we look at tourism to perhaps even create other forms of livelihoods that would help to sustain whatever regenerative efforts that we have in place or that we're going to have in place? But then also, can we start to even think about jobs, right? So what kind of jobs can come out of this? What kind of employment opportunities, entrepreneurship opportunities? And importantly, how do we ensure that visitors can come in and experience the place in a very safe, conducive environment, and one that allows them to feel a sense of pride? And so these are some of the considerations that I would say we should include, as well as what has already been said in terms of course, building, safety, security, etc. We need to start to say that, can we even start to look at quality of life and well-being, and how do we infuse all of that within our urban regeneration efforts? So it's a long journey, and we have started, and we just need to be able to celebrate what key milestones we're able to cross. So once we've set the milestones, we celebrate it. We need to also have very strong monitoring and evaluation processes in place, as well as importance of research and learning. How are we learning from what has happened before? How do we start to even have stronger intergenerational conversations to say, this is what the young people are saying now, but guess what? The youth have also shared quite a lot in the past, 50, 60, 70 years. How do we start to fuse those conversations together to present a rich Ìsàlè Èkó story that can appeal to those of us that live in Lagos, those of us that live in Nigeria, but also the global audience. So that is where I see us looking at. So let's start with a very expansive worldview, maybe perhaps quite ambitious, and then we can say, how do we break this down into achievable chunks?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, okay. I think one of the key, I'll speak towards the area of construction implementation in regeneration and development. I think one of the key things to note is that Lagos Island is very unique, even in terms of the planning legislation, which has been drawn up by the state government. For instance, in other areas of Lagos, you're allowed maybe a 4.5 meter setback, or you are compelled to provide a 3 or a 4.5 meter setback between your building line and the property fence. In Lagos Island, it's about 1.5 meters. There are really no restrictions, or in most areas, there are no restrictions to the height in which you can take this building. I do think that the building code, or drafting a coherent building code and planning legislation which is suitable and fit for purpose for Lagos Island is fundamental. If we're talking about a 1.5 meter setback, potentially, for instance, how does that stand up to fire spread, which has been calculated in other areas where you're allowed to leave 4 meters? How do you tackle issues of firefighting locally where fire trucks cannot get access? How do you tackle issues of potentially trying to educate people to drive on the roads as they're going along? So I think one of the fundamental things to answer the question is proper homegrown, and this leads to what Prof was saying, that members of the building industry within the forum must be at the forefront of trying to deliver a message. And one of the messages, very quickly, has to be a coherent building code which can be adopted by anybody else, but drafted specifically for Lagos Island.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to open the floor for questions.
Well, it's not really a question, it's just some observations. My name is Adeniji Kazim SN. I must commend the IDU for this very relevant topic. If you walk around the Ìsàlè Èkó area, you see a lot of overburdened infrastructure, a lot of decay. It's very clear. And I can say that a couple of months ago, on a weekend, I dragged my 2 kids. They're not kids anywhere, they're young adults. I'm very stubborn, but I dragged them, and we did a walkabout for about an hour or 2, the whole Ìsàlè Èkó area. And I said, well, this is where you guys are from. And they were shocked that, look, is this where the amount of intellect has emanated from? And I gave a rundown of the caliber of people that had emanated from this small area, and they were very shocked. But I would like to also give a small reality check of also what drives regeneration and development in what I would say the real world. The public, government will drive it, and of course the private sector. But I'll talk a little bit about the government. It's about budgets, really. And you find out that the decisions on how to drive development or regeneration, whatever you want to call it, will be decided at certain places. In the House of Assembly of the state, in the Executive Council, And of course, the Executive Council is headed by the governor. Key decisions on where to locate regeneration projects, redevelopment are made there. And what does that mean? It means that if you don't have real political power to drive that process or to get the choice projects allocated to your area, you will get something, but you will not get enough. And I think that's what we're seeing. If we go back and say, look, if this area has produced the amount of people, of intellect, of wealth, is this the best that we can do? I think we can do much more better. We are vocal, there's no doubt, and that's what we are doing here. But it's not about being vocal, it's about being effective. It's how effective are you? I can say it because I know that in the past, people with political power have been able to drive a lot of development to the areas that they belong to. And we must, as indigenes or from people from that area, you must take it seriously if you really want to get what you want. Now, one of the speakers had mentioned issues about population, and I'm going to take him up on that. I'm not sure because I was a bit worried. He said that 2021, the population of Lagos is going to be around 27 million. I'm not sure I saw it correctly. And I saw Lagos Island around 850,000 daytime population. And I was wondering, I said, so we're only 3% of the population right now. So you'll be surprised. In the real world, somebody sitting down there and say, well, look, how many votes can I get from there? Look, I mean, yes, it's in the center of Lagos. It has historical political power. And I use that word, historical political power. At one point in time, that area was the hub of power. But is it really now? Those are issues we must look at. So yes, if you want to get government, which is the biggest spender, to regenerate that area, to clean up the gutters, to upgrade the public utilities that you have there, and so on and so forth, you have to push your case. There's no doubt. Of course, the IDU, you need to hold your House of Assembly representative. Can give you the number if you want. You need to hold the House of Representative member, right? You need to hold him. Of course, in the EXCO, there's some people who typically are assigned, let me use that word, to Lagos Island as representing their interest. You need to identify and hold them. Write to them, get on their case, bombard them with emails emanating from here. And put our case, let me say your case, our case forward and say, look, this is what we need to do. And of course, the big masquerade himself, the governor, you will send the messages to him. You will bombard him, you trouble. Yes, I see there's some regeneration going, but is it enough? It's not enough, considering what we ought to have in that place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm making notes, so
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Kofo Karawi Nidisu. Before I say what I wanted to say, Niji, thank you very much for your contributions. Kolade, we've made a note. Niji, you are as much a part of us as we are. So we're coming for you. We are coming for you. One of the good things that has come out of this is that we're all waking up now in Ìsàlè Èkó. It's unfortunate the GM has left because the first question I wanted to ask was, what on earth is going on with Idumagbo? That road. I don't know about you, but I'm in Ìsàlè Èkó regularly for commercial activity. But regularly, if you park your car on Oroyi outside the Ìsàlè Èkó Grammar School during the rainy season. If you park in the morning, when you come in the afternoon, you will be convinced that somebody moved the vehicle because the place will be flooded. And once it rains, you need a rain boot to go through that area. And I don't think it can cost so much or it's rocket science to sort that issue out. Idumagbo, so that it is passable from Tom Jones to Adeniji and back. It is impassable. You have to go all the way around. You can't drive through. So I don't know what they're talking about regeneration. That's one. Two, listening to this, it's a personal pain for me. As I speak to you, none of my family, if I had to fill a form and they say, where's your family house in Ìsàlè Èkó? I can't, we don't have one because I don't know whether you call it regeneration or gentrification, but my grandfather's house was 38 Agoshofi. And I know till my father died in 2001, he was fighting because they wanted to demolish the houses there. I know those houses were strong. There was nothing wrong with them. Yes, the area might have needed a bit of doing up. But today, what have they done? They've demolished those houses, and what has replaced it? Oluwole Shopping Mall. What sort of regeneration is that, for crying out loud? And then the Martin Street car park. You pay 500 naira to park, and you can't get to your car. I don't know about you, whether you go to those areas. You park your car and you can't get there. And then they say to you, if you want an area where you can get to easily, you pay 1,000 naira. And I'm wondering, whose pocket is this money going into? So every indigene of Ìsàlè Èkó that's listening, wherever you are in the world, this isn't about the people in Ìsàlè Èkó Descendants Union or the executive. It's about you and I. Every single one of us have a responsibility, whatever you can give to make our dreams come true and for us to retain our ancestral homes and our homelands. It's not about a few people. It's all of us. It is all of us.
Thank you.
But I hope that the GM, please help us. Idumagbo and Oroyi, help us. It's bad. It's bad. It's terrible.
Thank you. We'll take one last question.
Thank you very much, and well done to everyone. I missed the first part, so I don't know whether maybe this was covered, but there are two areas that I just want to touch on. The first thing is, I don't know whether we have really properly addressed threats. Now, I feel that one of the threats is population density, and also another threat is environmental, because we know that Lagos, especially the coastline, is at great risk to, sea level rise. And so right now, climate change internationally is very, very high on the agenda. So I just think that, I don't know whether it has been considered that this is an opportunity to actually make some kind of study of what the threats are to Ìsàlè Èkó in terms of climate change, whether the resilience is there to sort of cope with that threat. And because there could be some kind of opportunities to actually get some kind of help in that area. So I think, we need to look at sort of where the threats are and how we can actually say to people, okay, this is where we need help. Because sometimes it's not only just sort of thinking, okay, government, we can actually access funds from other places, or maybe not even so funds straight away, but even opportunities to do studies. And so we actually really do have proper data and statistics and other things like that. So that's one thing. And the second thing, I would just like to echo what people have said. I know Professor Lawenson has said this. We really, when it comes to the historic sites, we really need to document them properly. And I just don't know what kind of documentation has actually been going on. For example, there are sort of lots of historic sites, and that's what we're saying makes Ìsàlè Èkó so unique. but what have we actually done to really document those places? For example, the IGA, do we have measured drawings of that building? That's a very important question. And I'm sure there are lots of other sites that are important. So those, I mean, I think somebody said, okay, you know, those places are not likely to be touched, but there are threats to them. And so I would just like to find out, you know, what are we doing to actually protect those places? And also to do proper, you know, in-depth documentation. Because, you know, I've been trying to sort of get some more information about the IGA over the years. And so far, it seems to be quite thin on the ground. And so maybe we have to sort of spread further. And I'm just mentioning that one building, which is very, very unique in Lagos. And there are others. So I don't know what is really being done there. It's very important. And also, we really need to have more access to these places. Because if you want to elevate an area, if you really want to let people know that these things are important, you also should be able to give people access so that they can actually go and visit these places. And I don't know what's being done in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a bit of time. Our President of Board of Trustees would like to say a few words. Just before that, I made some notes to summarize what we've achieved today. I'm so happy that I think it's been a very deliberate. We've had a lot of fantastic conversations, and just before I do that, something came online from Bumi Alugbi. This is actually the time to engage, as the preparation of the Lagos Island Model City Plan is being prepared. This position paper by IDU, as proposed by Professor Lawenson, should be put forward now. We can all co-create the Ìsàlè Èkó we want by collaborating. Amazing. Now, the following appears to be the consensus. I made five points here. 1, Ìsàlè Èkó needs to be regenerated. The environment needs to be more habitable. The area is a viable tourist district due to the vast number of historic sites and the centuries old history as well. Thirdly, gentrification is not an option and must be avoided at all costs. Number 4, that the government should engage the community and private sector in order to achieve the desired objective of an Ìsàlè Èkó that we can all be proud of. That experts that contributed today will definitely be in touch, and we'll be asking for your contribution as well. And lastly, that a follow-up engagement between a combined team of experts and LASURA should ensure to chart a way forward, and if possible, a roadmap and timeline is indeed needed. Thank you so much. At this point, can we have a President of Trustees, Alaji?
Yeah, thank you very much for this very important occasion. When a part of Lagos is picking up to know or find out what is the intention of Lagos government about their plan. Let me start by saying that the whole of Lagos Island, from Ìsàlè Èkó to Okekpokpo to Ologbowo to Brazilian Quarters to Balende, the whole of Lagos Island is a huge market, one market. Tell me any part of Lagos where trading is not going on. Not only in story buildings for people to live in, go to Edoluwo, go to Oroyin, go to Upper King Street, which is now, well, which used to be, that's Upper King Street, that's the original name. Now, Igadu Ghana, which now also covers Reclamation Road. Which house is not part of a market? Which house? Which street is not part of the huge market? Lagos Island has become one huge market in our lifetime, in my lifetime. And I start with the Lagos, Central Lagos Master Plan. It was stalled. It has now failed. That was the origin of acquisition of Central Lagos. Central Lagos from Tinubu Square down Victoria Street, which is now Nnamdi Azikiwe Street, to Idumota. And from Idumota to Ereko Street to Balogun Street, at the point where you now have UBA Central Bank. Then down again from there, Ologbowo, back to Tinubu Square. It's a triangle. Houses were acquired compulsorily by the then colonial government. I had left school at that time, just left school. So it's in my lifetime that this change has occurred. Mrs. Karunwi made reference to not Agoshofi, Olo Street area. That's the only portion of Central Lagos which was where compensation was paid to the owners, including Dr. Maja Gaba Square, where Dr. Maja's hospital was. Historic buildings were there. Compensation was paid, no development until now. As she said earlier on, it's one huge parcel of land for parking and for trading. The little part of the cone from the old Ereko market to Idumota, the old buildings are still there. They've not been pulled down. So that scheme, unfortunately, has failed. And there we are. When the acquisition process began in the 50s, there were protests by the house owners. I remember there was a movement led by Alhaji A.F. Masha against the acquisition. And that went on for a long time. But the point I'm making now, the first point I'm making, is that Lagos government has failed to inform the public what their plans are. When they hear of the claiming part of the old market at Idumagbo, incidentally, Wura market was part of Lagoon. That was declared only when Adumagbo was chairman of Lagos Town Council. And the young man was not young now. He's still alive. I'm talking in terms of maybe 30 or 40 years ago. There was no Wura market. It was part of Lagos Lagoon. And that portion of Adenija Road was at the junction of George Street. I don't know what name they call it, from Idumota. So what is now Adenija Road was where where Owolowo both companies used to take off passengers from Lagos Island to Ikorodu. There was no direct link to Ikorodu at that time, no Ikorodu road. And because of the disaster in the 40s, when one of the boats had the disaster where one of the boats stories and many lives are lost. It was almost at the junction where they call Owolowo and Elewura market. There was no market there. So the point I'm making now is to put pressure on Lagos State, and the Ìsàlè Èkó Descendants Union can be the arrowhead to get other similar associations on the island to ask Lagos State government to tell us what is the plan about. We don't know. I don't know. And I'm close to 90 years ago. 8, 9 years ago. We don't know. I don't know. And I've been connected with planning, district planning of Lagos for over 50 years. I was involved in bringing UNDP to Lagos State to prepare the Metropolitan Lagos Master Plan when I was in government in 1967 to 1974. Lagos was at the center of the plan. Master Plan for Lagos, what became virtually Lagos State, minus unfortunately Badagry. Master Plan for the same state, as it started as federal territory. That also you can take. Federal government was to play a counter part, a minor part, because it insisted that it was a plan for the new Lagos State, no longer federal territory. That's why Lagos State government, under the state the central role. That has happened. So if Lagos State government now wants to have a master plan, even the section on the lagoons and the Sekoko to a bit left down Adelide Road to what we now call popularly Elewura market. Lagos government should inform the landowners. And where are the landowners? You can't plan our land, our houses, without telling us what you want to do with it. And finally, the origin of LGBT. I'm happy that Missionary, one of my brothers, was number 2 to Dike Sanwo-Olu when he was the head of LSDC. Lagos Executive Board, Development Board, as he rightly said, was set up in 1979. Because of him, it went on to do some reclamation. When you hear of reclamation law, it was fall under water. You don't know what street, the law in new street, you do not go avenue, not to talk of Bomba Kati. Dankara market was in isolation. That part cannot be directed into what street to do. All that area was reclaimed. That's why we have reclamation road, reclaimed area from the lagoon. So that part of Lagos Island from the Timothy was largely reclaimed, and they always been having problems when the rain comes because nature was trying. You can't just lock up water. If you force it quickly, climate change is coming. But don't miss the point of this. Government should let us know what they want to do with our buildings, our family houses. You don't plan in isolation. You must carry the people along with you. And I ask, if I say descendants union, to hold that to pay. So when government unveils its plan, we look at it. If one is anywhere street, my father's house, close to the demolished, a market, a school, a something, whatever. I must know. I'm entitled to know. That gap was not even present in colonial days, in the early days of Nigeria, let alone in civilized world today. So I tried those and others to let the government allow know that they have to come out what they plan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. A question, sir. That's our president, the Board of Trustees. I think the next, first of all, please a round of applause for the panelists, please. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Mrs. Karen will give us a vote of thanks.
It has been a wonderful time together. One of the good things about these symposiums is that at the end of, we always take away, I don't know whether to call it a catchphrase, but a serious thing that we work on. Last year, it was Professor Adele Jinadu that gave it to us, and that was, don't organize, organize. For me, today, it came from Hakeem, regeneration or gentrification. Thank you very much to all our panelists. I'm going to be careful, so I have to look at you to remember names. Ado Kupe, yes, thank you very much. Professor Lawanson, thank you very much. Dolapo, I couldn't get your surname. Thank you very much. Kolade, thank you very much. Rotimi Fini, thank you very much. To the GM and Mr. Oshodi, thank you very much. We've heard it all, a lot to work on, a lot to think about. One of the good things about things like this is I'm a writer, I write and I write. And when I write, I identify people that we're going for and I go for the jugular. So Niji, you can't block me, I will call you. And everybody that can help us in every and any way to achieve what we want to achieve, we will be reaching out to you. And I hope and I pray that when we reach out to you, that you will actually be willing to support us, direct us, and help us achieve what we want to achieve. Because we love our Isale Èkó so much. We love our Isale Èkó. My fondest memories of childhood was walking the streets of Isale Èkó. I would go to visit my grandparents, and I used to insist that I only wanted Eba when I come to visit. I'm sure they thought it was because I loved Eba. It wasn't because I loved Eba. We would always keep a bit of the Eba to make kites in Martin Street car park with the local children. We would make our kites. So that was why we insisted on Eba. And after we'd done that, and then we would walk through all the streets. We had an auntie in Idoluwo, and we would go through all of those streets. And I go to those areas now, and I am pained. I am pained. But I hope and I pray that by the time we've done or started on this road that we started on, by the time we start to walk, that our children will look back and be thankful that we did, and they will carry on the torch and run even further in the same way we have taken the torch that has been handed to us, and we're doing the do that we can do. So thank you all very much. Thank you to our audience here. I can't but acknowledge our trustees. Uncle Lai, thank you very much. My auntie, it's a private joke between the executive and her. She's always on our side. Mrs. Okuola, Auntie Wanu, thank you very much. If there's anybody here who I haven't seen, thank you all very much for coming. And when we call out to you, please come again. Thank you very much. Ìsàlè Èkó Descendants Union are very serious about our Ìsàlè Èkó. We will continue this work that has been handed over to us, and we will see victory. We will see victory. Thank you all very much. Compliments of the season. Have a wonderful Christmas. Oh, group pictures.
Ìsàlè Èkó, ìbẹ̀ṣà lórísun, Ádámù òrìṣà, ọ̀kan làbà, ọlọ́gẹ̀dẹ̀, ẹ̀yọ́ oníkó, ẹ̀yọ́ àǹgẹ̀rẹ̀, Ìsàlè Èkó, àwa ló ní wọ́n, tiwa náà mi ṣe, bẹ́tẹ̀ ràn wá, ibẹ̀ náà ń dẹ́dẹ́, adé orí ọba, ó dinú ìgbà, ìgbà ìdúgbò, ìgbà ilé ọlá, ìgbà ilé ọlá, kádẹ́pẹ́ lórí. Kejì ọba ọdọ̀sùn ọmọ Èkó ará Èkó káríire mú délé àjọṣe wa má bàjẹ́ o àjọṣe wa má bàjẹ́ o ayé lè bàbá o ẹ̀yọ̀ funfun ẹ̀yọ̀ nẹ́nẹ́nẹ́ ẹ̀yọ̀. Ìbà olórí Ẹ̀yọ̀ Kàbírù Adésínà ọmọ Òṣòdì. Mo fẹ́ ikú dànù, mo fẹ́ àrùn dànù, mo fẹ́ àṣírí dànù. Àtọwọ́, àtọmọ, kó máa bá mi gbé. Èyí àgbó wà gbó, èyí àtọ̀ wà tọ̀, èyí àfùwà pẹ̀lú pẹ́pẹ́ tó lókun. Àbọ̀ lọ́wọ́. Lẹ́sẹ̀ àmọ́ tìmọ̀tìmọ̀ tímọ̀tímọ̀ lè ti mọ́rí tìmọ̀tìmọ̀ lálámọ̀ ń gbàmọ̀ ojúwe máa ṣẹ́gi òré àpẹja alágẹmọ wè máa ṣàbùtà ọmúwé máa ṣí lọ láyà obìnrin dùgbẹ̀dùgbẹ̀ oko ti kú ilẹ̀ nítẹ̀pà. Lèsì máa bá mo olúkèrèsè ilẹ̀ bàbá ẹ̀. Àtàwọ̀ àtọ̀gbẹ̀rì wọ́n kọ́ lálálálá lóde tó ṣùgbọ́n. Ìyàwó bá yọjú ọ̀gbẹ̀rì máa kọ̀gbẹ̀rì lẹ́sẹ̀. Èmi àṣàṣà wíní wíní àṣàṣà wíní wíní ẹ̀wọ̀n balẹ̀ rò wọ́yọ̀wọ́yọ̀. Eégún ilé ni mí. Iṣẹ́ ni àgbá lójú, àfi ilé ni mí, iṣẹ́ ni àti láyà. Èmi ají kìíní, àní kìíní, àní kìíní wọ́jà. Èmi àfi jù wọ́jà máa ìgbẹ́ lẹ́kẹ̀, ọ̀bùn wọ́jà máa pa Apanilágbọ̀n, Èkó akẹ́tẹ̀ ìlú ọgbọ́n, àdọ̀dẹ̀dẹ̀ máa jà. Adémọ́lá ọmọ Adélé, ọmọ ọlọ́gbọ́n lórí ẹja mú. Ìrọ̀ òmùgọ̀ wọn á di níru. Ní ìmẹ̀sì kọ́lé, ní ìmọ̀ọ́dẹ ráyè. Yẹ́sù à! Ẹ̀yọ́ ayẹlẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́. Ẹ̀yọ́ ayẹlẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́. Ẹ̀yọ́ bàbá ń ta wá sí fìgòlù ṣeré. Àwa ò ní sanwó níbodè, ó dilé. Ẹ̀yọ́ ayẹlẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́. Ẹ̀yọ́ ayẹlẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́. Ẹ̀yọ́ bàbá ń ta wá sí fìgòlù ṣeré. Àwa ò ní sanwó níbodè, ó dilé. Ẹ̀yọ́ ayẹlẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́. Ẹ̀yọ́ ayẹlẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́. Ẹ̀yọ́ bàbá ń ta wá sí fìgòlù ṣeré. A ò ní sanwó níbodè, ó dilé. Ẹ̀yọ́ ayẹlẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́. Ẹ̀yọ́ ayẹlẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́. Ẹ̀yọ́ bàbá ń ta wá sí fìgòlù ṣeré. Àwa ò ní sanwó níbodè, ó dilé. Ìsàlè Èkó ibẹ̀ ṣá lórí sun Ádámù òrìṣà ọ̀kan làbà ọlọ́gẹ̀dẹ̀ ẹ̀yọ́ oníkó ẹ̀yọ́ àǹgẹ̀rẹ̀ Ìsàlè Èkó àwa ló ní wọ́n tiwa náà mi ṣe bẹ́tẹ̀ ràn wá ibẹ̀ náà ń dẹ́dẹ́ adé orí ọba ó dínú ìgbà ìgbà ìdúgbò ìgbà ilé ọlá ìgbà ilé ọlá kádẹ́pẹ́ lórí oyè kan kejì ọba ọdọ̀sùn ọmọ Èkó ará Èkó káríire mú délé àjọṣe wa má bàjẹ́ o àjọṣe wa má bàjẹ́ o ayélé bàbá o ẹ̀yọ̀ funfun ẹ̀yọ̀ nẹ́nẹ́nẹ́ ẹ̀yọ̀. Ìbà olórí ẹ̀yọ̀ Kàbírù Adésínà ọmọ Òṣòdì. Mo fẹ́ ikú dànù, mo fẹ́ àrùn dànù, mo fẹ́ àṣírí dànù. Àtọwọ́ àtọmọ kó máa bá mi gbé. Èyí àgbó wà gbó, èyí àtọ̀ wà tọ̀, èyí àpò àpẹẹrẹ pẹ́pẹ́ tó lókun. Àmọ́ lọ́wọ́, àmọ́ lẹ́sẹ̀, àmọ́ tìmọ̀tìmọ̀. Tìmọ̀tìmọ̀ lè fi mọ́rí. Tìmọ̀tìmọ̀ lálámọ̀ ń gbàmọ̀. Ojúwe máa ṣẹ́gi òré. Àpọ̀já alágẹmọ wè máa ṣàbùtà. Ọmúwé máa ṣí lọ láyà obìnrin dùgbẹ̀dùgbẹ̀. Oko ti kú, ilẹ̀ nítẹ̀pà. Lè sì máa bá mọ olúkèrèsè ilẹ̀ bàbá ẹ̀. Àtàwọ̀ àtọ̀gbẹ̀rì wọn kọ́ lálálálá lóde tó ṣùgbọ́n. Ìyàwó bá yọjú, ọ̀gbẹ̀rì máa kọ̀gbẹ̀rì lẹ́sẹ̀. Èmi àṣàṣà wíní wíní, àṣàṣà wíní wíní. Ẹ̀wọ̀n balẹ̀ rò wọ́yọ̀wọ́.